Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and busts. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, folks. This is the More Money Show. This is the best time of the week, right? Because it's Saturday afternoon and you're listening to our show, which is on every weekend. And thank you so much for joining. We are coast to coast. We go all the way from Los Angeles to Kansas City and Chicago and St. Louis, and we've got stations in Georgia, all the way south in Georgia. We got stations up in Maine. So thank you all for being such loyal listeners to the show. And if you're new to the show, we talk about economics, we talk about politics, we talk about finance. We like to have some fun, talk about these things, and we try to talk common sense so you can make more money. So let me start with the making more money theme today, and that is that first of all, we have a booming economy, folks. This is irrefutable. The economy is firing on all cylinders. And if you look at what's happening to the GDP, the latest estimate is above 5%, which is gigantic. That was for the fourth quarter, and the first quarter is off to a great start of this year. We're looking at record low gas prices. They're lower in real terms than they've been in any time in 25 years. Some my friends in Colorado texted me this morning showing me $1.79 they're paying per gallon. Boy, I'm not paying that in Virginia, but I am paying $2.69. And I remember when the gas price went as high as $4 and $5 a gallon under Joe Biden. We are seeing inflation that is coming down pretty rapidly. We're still too high. I know we're still too high. I feel your pain, folks. Paying too much for housing, paying too much for healthcare, paying too much for steaks. But other things are falling in price, and we are now at 2.7% on an annualized basis. We want to be at 2%. That's the target, 2%. That the Fed has set, and that's the appropriate target. So we still have some work to be done, but a vast improvement there. Crime is down dramatically. Interest rates are starting to finally creep down. We are seeing, in my opinion, a manufacturing renaissance in this country. So it is all looking very good. Personal income is up above inflation. We estimate the average family gained $2,500 in income after adjusting for inflation. So it's a beautiful picture. Okay. Now, what I wrote in the hotline the other day, and I hope you're all getting our More Money hotline at Unleash Prosperity, just go to unleashprosperity.com and sign up. It's free. It costs you nothing. I know most of you do get it, because why wouldn't you get it when all you have to do is click on the hotline, give us your email, and you get it for free. It costs you nothing. And if you like it, as I think you will, you'll continue to receive it. If you don't, you can just unsubscribe, but it's free. Unleashprosperity.com. Anyway, we wrote an item on Friday saying that Trump should just let it rip. And what we mean by that is you've got an economy that is red hot right now. We are the envy of the world. We're growing faster than China. We're growing faster than Japan. We're growing faster than Europe. We're growing faster than Mexico, Canada, Korea. All of these countries are looking at the United States, and it's almost like that scene from When Harry Met Sally. I'll have what she's having. People want to see that kind of growth in their own and that kind of prosperity in their own country. So things are going well, but here is what bothers me, folks. If you look at what Trump is talking about recently in some of his policies, I think there's some bad news here. I think that Trump is a little bit off of base. And I love the guy. I worked with the guy. I visit him in the Oval Office every now and then. I consider him a friend. But when you look at what he has proposed in the last couple of weeks, I don't get it, Mr. President. I think some of these proposals don't make a lot of sense. So, for example, one of the things that you may have seen is that the president wants to put a cap on credit card interest rates. for overdue payments. I think that's a really bad idea. If you do that, what you're going to do is you're going to have people lose credit card access. So we estimate several million people will lose access to credit cards. There'll be lower income people with poor credit ratings. And that means they're not going to have access to credit at all. They may have to go to Guido, the loan shark, if they don't get this, if they lose their credit card, or they may have to go to a payday lender. And by the way, I'm not against payday loans, but ironically, the person who sold Donald Trump on this idea, this stupid idea of capping credit card interest rates, was none other than Elizabeth Warren. Pocahontas, remember her? And so now Trump is taking advice from Pocahontas? No, Mr. President, you want to do exactly the opposite of what Elizabeth Warren recommends. So that's a bad idea. Then they want to give $200 billion more to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Hello? Is anybody paying attention? Does anybody remember what happened in 2008? The last time we gave bundles and bundles of money to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? Remember? They needed the biggest bailout of any institution. We gave them hundreds of billions of dollars of bailouts from taxpayers. Now here we are again. It's almost like we have completely lost our minds, and we cannot remember the fact that Fannie and Freddie was the major institution who plunged us into that near depression we had in 2008 and 2009. And then you have ideas, like they're talking about deporting people who are working. And, I know this is a controversial subject, but my position on the border is very simple. Mr. President, you get an A++ for securing the border. Thank you, sir, for doing that. There's no longer mayhem at the border. It's great. Tom Homan, our ICE director, has done an amazing job on that. Tom Homan says that they've deported 250 to 300,000 criminal aliens. Thank you for getting rid of the people who would do us harm. But I do not see the political or economic wisdom of deporting people who may be overdue on their visa or came in illegally, but they are working, they're paying taxes, they've got a job, they have committed no crimes. I think it's a big mistake to deport those people. What I support is what's called the Dignity Act, which is make these folks pay a stiff penalty of $7,000 to $10,000. Make sure they have to certify they have a job. They have to certify that they have not committed any crimes in the country, and let them stay, but they do not have a path to citizenship. But there's so many more of these ideas that have come out by Trump that I think are ill-advised, because we want a free market. We don't want the government intervening in all of these industries. So, for example, saying to institutional investors, you can't buy houses. Why? Why shouldn't institutional investors buy houses? Usually they'll buy units, and then what they will do is they will rent those units out, et cetera, et cetera. So much better ways of dealing with that crisis rather than restricting who can buy houses. My point is, Mr. President, stay on message, hit the ball out of the park, stick with free enterprise proposals that make sense to the American people that are growing the economy, and do not take advice from Elizabeth Warren. That is my More Money riff for the day. We've got an exciting show today, folks. Please stay tuned. We're going to bring on the great Arthur Laffer and some of the most amazing minds in this country. And I think you're going to enjoy the show this afternoon a lot.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show on WABC and affiliated stations throughout the country. Thanks so much for joining. Now I have the high privilege of interviewing someone who's interviewed me many, many dozens and scores of times. So I get to grill you, Chris Stigall.
Every week.
I've been waiting to do this to get back at you, so to speak. Now, Chris Stigall, you know Chris. He is syndicated all over how many stations?
We're on over 400 stations now on the Salem Network.
And what, in the morning?
Yeah, 6 to 9 Eastern every weekday, Monday through Friday.
And this was the show that used to be hosted by...
Hugh Hewitt was on in the morning, and then Sebastian Gorka was on in the afternoon. And of course, Seb moved to the administration.
Right.
And so Hugh took over Seb's show, and that opened the mornings, and
well,
here I am.
You do a fantastic job, and I love coming on your show, so thanks for coming on mine. So tell me about the radio business.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people say that, talk radio is passé, and I don't, I get great response when I do this show and your show. So is talk radio going to go away?
No, but it is evolving.
Right.
You know, my company Salem is doing what so many people are trying to figure out right now: a traditional broadcast company evolving in a digital era.
Yes.
Where everybody with a microphone and a camera is doing a show now.
So, by the way, sorry to interrupt, but when you do your show, you do video and audio
every day. We stream on what's called the Salem News Channel, which is a fairly new format.
Yes.
But
that's why I have to comb my hair and put a coat on. When I'm on your show.
They make us dress up now.
See, I can do my radio show in my pajamas.
I know. That's the one. For 25 years, this is the first year I've ever had to care about what this is. But no,
I've never seen you in a tie before.
Yeah,
I'm only kidding.
I just assume not. But no, that's the thing, is now trying to figure out how do you evolve in an era where people consume anything, anytime, anywhere on their schedule.
Right.
Radio, traditional broadcast was, I'm on from 6 to 9 in the morning, and if you don't tune in from 6 to 9 in the morning, you'll miss the show, and I won't see it till tomorrow. That's not true anymore. YouTube, streaming, podcasts. So you've got to be everywhere all the time and available. That's what media is trying to evolve and do.
So one of the things I found with this show is, we have an older audience.
Sure.
I'd say most of our listeners are in their 60s, 70s, even we have people in their 80s and 90s listening.
God bless them.
We try to attract the younger, and we do get some young. Do you find that to be a more older audience that's listening to your show, or what are the demographics?
Yeah, I think broadly speaking, the demographic is what's called 35 to 64 in traditional broadcast terms. That's sort of the wheelhouse. I have heard all my life since I've been in talk radio.
And how many years has that been?
Yeah, since 2004.
Okay, 20 years.
Yeah, and I have heard all along, how do we make it younger? How do we make it younger? And the answer is, people that listen to talk radio are people that have lived lives, frankly.
That's true.
And I don't know how else to say it. I don't mean to insult younger people, but younger people's priorities are just not the same as older folks' priorities, and that's okay. It's just that their headspace is not where a lot of people who are older's headspaces are.
Now, do you take listeners on callers?
Callers, I do.
So I want to ask you a question, because I've always said that, one of the reasons that Rush Limbaugh was so ahead of the curve on politics over everyone else, especially politicians, is he was talking to real people every single day.
Yes.
And he knew where the puck was going before anybody else did. Do you find that? And I find that to be true. I learn so much from my listeners. What do you have to say about that?
Every day.
Yeah.
There is no one in my audience that doesn't know something more about everything that I bring up than they do.
Right.
So I never assume any day of the week that I start a show that whatever I'm about to talk about, there isn't somebody that knows more. You have to come to it with some element of humility, I think.
You do.
To admit what you don't know.
Exactly.
And people trust a host, I think, that says, I don't have that answer, or I may have gotten that wrong. And that's the era, frankly, in the digital era, Steve, what's so dangerous, everybody's trying to be splashy and get downloads and clicks. Accountability is really lacking in our business, though.
That's so true.
And I'm willing to say, I said last week or last year XYZ was going to happen. Boy, did I get that wrong. There's something to being able to come back and own.
A little humility.
I didn't get it wrong. I didn't get it right.
So I find the same thing to be true, Chris. And I'm talking to Chris Stigall, who is, of course, a nationally syndicated radio host all over the country with
Salem, 400 plus
400
stations now, yeah.
And so I love doing Chris's show. One of the things I've found, I wondered, I'd like your reaction to this, is I actually encourage people to call in when they disagree with me.
Please.
Because I want to hear their argument. And sometimes, by the way, they can make very persuasive arguments. How about you?
Front of the line, every time. If you've got something to say, and I always tell people, they want to argue on social media, Hey, I do a show and the phone line's open. Call in, please. Let's have it out in public.
I call it freedom of speech radio.
Amen. Absolutely. We should encourage more of that. I'm all for it. And
so what are the issues that when you take your callers from all over the country, what are people concerned about now?
Whether it's true or not, Steve-O, and it's something I've been, we're here.
I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're here at the Republican.
We're in the caucus room
and then their study committee is what they're called, which I didn't really know a lot about. But I'm telling these Republicans, whether it's real or whether it's imagined, people are telling me things are unaffordable.
Yes.
And it's hard to tell people it's better than it used to be, so suck it up.
Okay, Chris, we've got 1 minute left. You get to ask me a question because I've been asking you a question.
How do we make people feel? How do we turn things around and make Republicans' message that things are affordable, that we are doing well, things are trending in the right direction? Because they don't seem to feel it at the moment.
Okay, next question. That's a tough one. I've been really grappling with that because the official statistics, as I said on your show a week or two ago, they show people's incomes are up more than inflation, so people actually have more affordability. But I don't know, maybe it's throw it back to you, maybe it's that people tend to look at, there's some studies that show that people pay less attention to things that are falling in price, and they pay more attention to things that are, so in other words, right now gas prices are down, so they're not focused on that, but beef prices are up, so oh my God, the price of a steak is so expensive, so maybe it's human nature that we focus on the bad news rather than the good news.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of people in our space that are driving, I think negativity drives a lot, by the way. I think you get more clicks with saying the sky is falling and everything's rotten too, so there's an element of that.
I think the last thing is like Donald Trump, what grade would you give him so far in the second term in terms of handling?
I hate to sound like a homer, but I just think the guy is A, B plus at the worst. He's doing everything he can possibly do. I've never seen a more in my life since I've been able to vote. I've not had a more consequential president.
I couldn't agree more. And as you know, I did disagree with Trump. And when I said, "There's Steve Moore. He doesn't like my terrorists." I said, "No, sir, I'm not a big fan." But and one of the things I love about him, by the way, is that he's gutsy. He will do it. He will do things that other presidents have been afraid to do, and he puts America first.
Amen. And you've written a book. I mean, he trusts your word. Listen, people that listen to this show, President Trump, when Steve walks into the room, he says, "Let's talk to the media," and calls them all in, and you give a presentation.
There you go.
That means Chris, he trusts you.
That was like a surreal experience. Chris, thanks for coming on. Thanks. I will be on your show every Tuesday morning. So, folks, please tune into that, and appreciate you coming here. And Chris has to get back to interview his own guests. So, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Steve-O. God bless you.
Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. I am your host, economist Steve Moore. Thanks again for joining on a Saturday afternoon. So my next guest is Phil Kerpen. You know Phil Kerpen, who's a regular guest on the More Money Show. He works with me at Unleash Prosperity. He also runs an organization called American Commitment. What is American Commitment?
Well, we're a national free market advocacy group, Steve. We work really on all the fiscal, economic, and regulatory issues, but we try to focus on the ones at any given point in time that are really on the margin, where if we get more citizens engaged, sending letters to Congress or into regulatory agencies, we can maybe tip the outcome in a more free market direction. If people want to take a look, AmericanCommitment.org is the website.
Okay, great. Well, so a lot to talk about. Let's start with the issue that you've become one of the world's experts on, and that is the healthcare system. And so let's start with what's going on in Congress right now, because I think people are a little confused about what's happening. So we have the Obamacare subsidies that the Democrats want extended and expanded. You're against that. I'm against that. I think any rational person should be against that because it's exploded costs for everyone. So what is the state of play right now?
Well, it's a pretty amazing situation because the House at the very end of last year passed a pretty good bill. I wouldn't say a home run, but, a solid line drive single in the direction of all the things that we want on healthcare: deregulation, more choice, more competition, more transparency. It didn't do everything that we wanted, but directionally it was a very good bill. So I thought, okay, this is where the House is.
Let's go through this.
Yeah.
More transparency means you get to know what the things, the patient gets to see what things are going to cost.
Yeah, so they had that for they have transparency for prescription drug pricing in that bill, which is important. Of course, you and I would like it for all medical services, and we would like them to go a lot further. But that's what I mean. It wasn't
hospital services.
This bill didn't touch that.
Why?
Because they lack ambition. Every time I talk to a Republican on healthcare, I say, be more ambitious.
Yeah. Look, I mean, folks, why does it make any sense that if you're admitted to the hospital, they don't tell you what it's going to cost? I mean, it's just we ask what everything costs, but you can't.
The vast majority of medical services are non-emergency,
yes.
and people could shop for them if we had a functioning market system.
So some of those numbers, by the way, that I've seen show that, for example, an MRI might cost $800 at one hospital, and you go down the street and it's $3,000. I mean, and the fact that people don't shop around really increases the cost of healthcare, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've got we have an Unleash Prosperity Now poll on this issue specifically. We haven't released it yet, but I'll give your listeners a little bit of a preview, a little sneak preview. Yeah. The number one support number in the whole poll, and we went through a whole list of reforms, but when we asked, should prices be transparent, it was 92%. Now, I don't know the other 8 or if they didn't hear the question right or what it was.
Okay, so who could be against that? Maybe it was the hospital.
Yeah, right. I don't know.
But the point is that Trump did in his first term, thanks to Arthur Laffer, and they discussed this, and Trump signed an executive order. It seems to me, Phil, that the hospitals, the physicians, the clinics, nobody's abiding by the rule.
Yeah, the compliance has been very poor. And the other problem we've got with these giant hospital systems, which, by the way, they're great at PR because they actually do super well in our poll. People love the hospitals, which I find incredible.
Hospitals are great, but
which I find incredible because, what they've done in many cities, you have 1 or 2 hospital systems that have gobbled up all of the physicians' practices and essentially eliminated competition. And, we have some crazy federal payment policies. So in Medicare, if you go to an independent physician for a hospital visit, Medicare pays one amount. But if the exact same physician working in the exact same building gets acquired by a hospital group and they hang a shingle outside saying now it's a satellite location of the hospital, the federal government will pay more for the same visit with the same doctor.
Why?
Because now it's a hospital visit. Now it can now. So they have. So we have a lot of incentives that have driven a lot of consolidation, which has led to less competition and choice. But to finish my original thought, so they had a pretty good bill at the end of the year, but then they passed a horrible bill in the House. They actually turned control of the House floor over to the Democrats. A handful of Republicans did, and they passed the Chuck Schumer bill, which is a 3-year extension of the supersized subsidies with literally 0 reforms, no income limits, no minimum payments, 0 anti-fraud measures, even though we know that 32% of all the Social Security numbers that are used for Obamacare do not reconcile with IRS tax records. That's according to the GAO. So I think it's crazy for anyone to look at that and say, we don't need to have anti-fraud measures. We don't need to have any reforms. We're just going to accept.
Could be a fraudulent.
Yeah, is at least suspect. Is at least there's something because because those numbers should reconcile. Now in government, you're not going to get perfect reconciling all the time. So I'm not going to say it's all fraud, but it's a very big number and it's highly suspicious. And we also know from GAO that there were 68,000 Social Security numbers that were being used for more than one person on Obamacare under the same Social Security number. So this has massive problems. And to me, it's amazing because what I thought Democrats would do is I thought they would say, okay, we're going to extend it with these reforms, and they were going to have a bunch of reforms, things that'd be hard to say no to, and that they would sort of, use that as a way to leverage, sort of box in Republicans politically and get this money done. And they didn't even do that, Steve. They just extended it with no fixes, no reforms, nothing. Just 3 more years of the exact same thing.
They're not against fraud.
But that passed the House. 17 Republicans and all the Democrats passed in the House. So now we have this weird circumstance where the House has passed a pretty good bill. The House has also passed a horrible bill. And everyone's kind of like looking to the Senate. Well, are you going to do something? Are you going to do nothing? Are you going to do something good? Are you going to do something bad? And so we're all waiting. Trump says that this coming week, he's going to unveil a plan. I think there are a lot of indications it's going to be pretty good. Okay. We've shared all of our ideas with the White House, so we'll see what they come out with.
Now, is the clock ticking on this? I mean, do they have to have a bill?
Well, the open enrollment.
All these people going to lose their health
So the
benefits?
open enrollment.
That's what the Democrats say.
Open enrollment for 2026 is closed. It closed on January 15th, and
so
we'll
see. What does that mean?
So the current enrollment period for choosing an Obamacare plan for 2026 is over unless you have a qualifying event, like you change jobs or you have a baby or whatever. There's a list of qualifying events. But other than that, you got to wait until next year's open enrollment. It's closed. The window for that is closed. So we'll know very soon what those final numbers were. But we know that as of January 3rd, it was almost as high as last year. So this idea that, well, there are going to be millions and millions of people that can't afford care and it's going to be, all of these fear hype stories have already been disproven. So I think politically that undermines the Democrats' case. But it also, I think, is not such great news for taxpayers, Steve, because it means that all those phantom people and all the fraud that we know went on in the last few years, those people are still on. The insurance companies are still being paid for them for 2026. So there's a lot of work to do still.
So I'm talking to Phil Kerpen, who is the president of American Commitment and also works with me at Unleash Prosperity. By the way, if you don't get our Unleash Prosperity hotline, please do. It's free. It costs you nothing. Just go to unleashprosperity.com. I want to stick on this fraud message as if I can, because you're one of the editors of the hotline. And I think a lot of people know this story about what happened with this independent journalist in Minneapolis, who videotaped, firsthand the fraud. And he would go to these daycare centers. There are no kids. I think most of you know this story. What I think is so remarkable about this story,
Nick Shirley was his name, yeah.
He's being treated
like a 22 or 23-year-old kid did better journalism than all of the
right.
professional journalists.
First of all, where were the journalists? Why did it take a kid with a camera to do this? Where was the ABC, NBC, Fox News? Where was everybody? Where was CNN? But I think what's remarkable about this story, and I want your thoughts about it, is now the media and the left is going after Shirley as if he's kind of a villain here. I mean, you would think people would be, I think he's a hero for doing this. So what the hell is going on there? Why are they acting as if he's a watchdog?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, look, this is the same thing they did for years with James O'Keefe also. I think that they hate the idea that in this day and age, anybody with a camera can be a journalist. Yeah. They want to gatekeep. And when they see that somebody do this,
but the thing is,
and they also want to protect these government spending programs.
But the point is that look, I'm all for the journalists doing that, but they're not. Yeah. They don't do it. And this cost this guy probably $500. You've got $5 billion, major media centers that didn't get this story.
Well, look, you're right. I think the good news is they have been shamed into covering the Minnesota fraud scandals now. And these guys, for no other reason than we keep seeing prosecutions now. The Trump FBI and Justice Department have collected massive amounts of information here, and it's all going to come out whether the journalists want to do the work or not. But it looks like at this point that the scale of the fraud in Minnesota, this is one state, it looks like it's about $8 billion that was stolen from federal taxpayers, $8 billion, which, just for some perspective on this, this fraud scheme was overwhelmingly in the Somali community in Minnesota. That's half the GDP of Somalia. Somalia has a $16 billion GDP, and we had an $8 billion fraud rate.
This is an economic stimulus plan for Somalia. Well, we had a funny, cartoon in our hotline about, that scene from Breaking Bad where, he goes in with his wife into the garage, and there's where people remember that scene, and there's the stacks and stacks of $100 bills he got from selling drugs. And she says, "Where did all this money come from?" He says, from our Somalian.
Well, Steve, we've talked about this. We've talked about this a lot in Hotline, but there's a massive, massive problem when you have programs that are state-run but federally funded. Yes. Which is that they just see it as free money. So why do they care if it's fraud?
Where was Tim Walz?
He thought it was stimulus, I think. He wanted to bring in the money. Look, the fact that he has now decided not to run for re-election tells you, I think, that he's in some personal jeopardy on this stuff.
Well, he should be. He certainly should be impeached from office immediately. This is one of the biggest financial frauds in American history. And he seems petulant about this. Why should I have to leave office?
Steve, in his statement on why he wasn't running for re-election, he said it's so he can focus on fighting fraud.
It's about time. It's only 7.5 years into your administration. Okay, so you think that what's the happy news? Are we going to get a decent outcome on health care? Are we going to see the Republicans fold? Because I believe, Phil, that we could get better health care in this country for half the cost if we had a more efficient system and put the patient back in the equation, put the free market back in the equation. But we keep moving in that opposite direction.
Look, I'm cautiously optimistic just because I think things have gotten bad enough that there's an appetite for being aggressive. And this is a president who I think wants to have a positive legacy on healthcare. And he's been very focused on, look, he got the United Kingdom to agree to pay 25% more for brand drugs from the United States. Yeah. So, I think we're making progress in a lot of areas where people thought it was intractable. And, I'm hoping that his plan will actually get some positive elements into a bill if one does move in Congress. So, we're going to try to make sure that if the Senate does some kind of extension, we're at least getting a lot of good things along with it.
And how much of health, so that final word, how much have healthcare costs gone up since we passed Obamacare? Which was
I don't have
Affordable Care Act.
I don't have the number in front of me, but it's a lot. I mean, it basically, the idea that it was going to bend the cost curve down was laughably wrong. And of course, I also point out to people that one of the pay-fors for Obamacare was the nationalization of student lending, which is also cost us a fortune.
All right, guys, that anatomy of a fraud is the topic of this conversation. Phil Kerpen, you're the best. Keep being the watchdog that you are, and I hope they don't come after you the way they did against Shirley. And folks, we'll be right back. This is The More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire an energy vampire. But also they're a literal vampire. And suddenly my team is spending all their time sharpening wooden stakes and buying bulk silver and rehearsing ancient chants, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant takes insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a short list of the best fits for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Your Wish is Your Command is being called the greatest success book of all time, with over 100,000 five-star reviews.
I went from $5K on my bank account to $8 million.
My income doubled.
I was able to retire at the age of 31.
It reveals the missing key to the law of attraction. Your Wish is Your Command is now available on Amazon. Search Your Wish is Your Command on Amazon to get your copy today.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is The More Money Show on WABC and other affiliated stations throughout the United States. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday afternoon. I am today in the Cannon House office building where there is a radio row where we can talk to some of the most influential members of Congress. And I don't know if you're one of the most influential yet,
me,
because you've only been in office, Congressman Randy Fine from Florida, for how many months now?
8 months. I got elected April 1st.
Oh, my gosh.
I was an April Fool's Day election, got sworn in April 2nd.
What is the thing that has surprised you most about Congress in your first 8 months here?
How little people actually work together. I came from the Florida legislature.
Yes.
You spent all of your time with your colleagues in committee and on the floor. Here, everybody does their own thing. And there's just not a lot of collaboration. And I think that's what leads to part of the dysfunction. Yeah, it's a function of process and rules. Yeah. And we could go into why, but I think good process drives good policy.
So what is your number one goal in serving in Congress? What do you want to achieve in your time here in Washington?
Well, that's a broad question. My number one goal right now is to make sure President Trump is successful in saving America.
Well, you're off to a good start.
Yeah, so that's it. I mean, my number one long-term goal, and I will consider my time here a failure, is if I don't help solve the budget deficit and the budget debt problem. I used to teach economics at Harvard. Don't hold that against me. A long time ago. And our country.
How long ago was that?
It was 1997 and 98 when I was a graduate student at Harvard Business School. And our country will collapse in my children's lifetime if we do not solve this problem. I do not worry about the judgment of the voters. I worry about the judgment of my children, and I'm not willing to leave them a country that's at risk of collapse.
Well, I just had one of your colleagues on the show, and he was saying that the latest estimate is in 10 years we're going to have a $60 trillion national debt, and that's an enormous burden to put on our kids.
Yeah, and the problem is you can borrow until you can't.
Right.
It will be a sudden collapse. And I'm not willing to be a part of that.
So what do we do? How do we bring it under control?
Well, we have to cut spending. That's the number one thing we have to do. We have to tell people the purpose of government is not to take money from one person and give it to another. That is where we went wrong. And we can start by cutting off illegal and legal immigrants. If you want to come to this country for freedom and opportunity, that's one thing. You want to come from free stuff, stay at home.
This is a big, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's no bigger advocate for immigration than me, but they have to come in through legal channels. And when immigrants come into the country, they should not be eligible for welfare. But this has been our history for 200 years. People came, they built themselves up. This is a land of opportunity. And I feel strongly about that. No food stamps, none of this stuff. You can come to our country, you can contribute. And by the way, immigrants do very well in the United States. The worst thing you can do, by the way, is to bring them in the country and start giving them benefits.
Yeah, and by the way, you'll attract the wrong kind of
Exactly.
people. So look, when my family came 100 years ago, someone had to sign a paper guaranteeing they would take care of them. Now you come in and they're waiting for you at the airport to sign you up to a whole all-you-can-eat buffet of free stuff. And what's worse, the worst thing about it is we're borrowing that from our grandchildren. We're giving free stuff to foreigners with borrowed money. It is immoral, and it has to stop.
So Donald Trump has had an amazing first year, in my opinion. I've been in this town for 40 years, so I've been here a lot longer than you have. But I've never seen quite a year as accomplishing more things, partly through the work you've done in Congress, but also through his executive orders and so on. How would you rate this president so far in terms of his performance?
I think it's extraordinary. I mean, think about how bad things were a year ago.
Right.
I mean, America, I do not believe our country would have survived 4 years of Kamala Harris.
I agree.
I don't think we would have survived.
Agree.
So to stop the destruction and turn us around to some degree, it's an achievement of epic proportion, and I think you can only explain it by someone who's willing. He's the hardest working president in our history.
I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, I've traveled with him on his campaigns, and he is a freak of nature when it comes to the energy. So we do have this giant debt, but we are growing. The good news is the economy is growing at a nice pace right now. I believe next year, when the full tax cut really kicks in for people, we could see a blockbuster year of 2026.
And if we can grow the economy and keep the spending in check, we will solve the problem.
Yeah.
That because, by the way, we can't tax our way out of the problem. And frankly, I don't think we can cut our spending out of the problem. You have to have growth and spending control. That's how you solve it.
Amen to that. You say it exactly right. And by the way, we can get more tax revenues in through growth. If you, as you know, you've seen the charts on this. If we can get to 3 to 3.5% growth, which I believe is we're capable of doing that, then you start to bend that curve down on the debt. And then you put in place some of the savings that you can make from getting rid of unnecessary spending. It can happen quickly. I mean, I was here when Newt Gingrich was speaker, and we said we were going to balance the budget in 7 years. We did it in 3 because we put caps on spending and we grew the economy.
I think it's entirely possible to be done. People just have to have the willingness, because what I worry about is, oh, look, the economy's growing, revenues are coming in, let's spend more. I mean, that's going to be our fundamental challenge, is to stop spending money.
In our last 2 minutes on the show, by the way, I'm talking to Congressman Randy Fine from the great state of Florida. I wanted to ask you about the great state of Florida. I've become a huge fan of your governor, who I think is just amazing what he has achieved. And by the way, you've had 3 great governors in a row. You had Jeb Bush, fantastic. You had Rick Scott, and then it doesn't get better than that. And so we have done a study showing that the state of Florida, over the last 10 years, has imported cumulatively $1 trillion of money from people coming into the state. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. The secret of Florida.
By the way, where are you in Florida?
So I represent Daytona Beach. That's the racetrack is the most famous thing in my district.
Got it.
What I would say is the miracle of Florida is 25, 30 years of consistent conservative governance. Yeah. You hit it by talking about 3 governors. That's number 1. Number 2 is supermajorities, strong majorities in both chambers, term limits. So people constantly churning out.
Yes.
You show up, you got 8 years to get your ideas done, and part-time legislature.
Can we bring this Florida model to the United States Congress?
I'd love to. What I will say is this. If America was run like Florida, we wouldn't have any of these problems.
Amen to that. It's a contest, as you know, Congressman, between Florida and Texas to see which state is going to grow the fastest.
I think we're winning. And unfortunately for us, we're going to grow with a whole lot of New Yorkers, I think, here in the not-too-distant future.
Well, as you know, our flagship station is WABC in New York. Well, and, it's sad to see what's happened in the great city and
it's very sad.
One of our great states. Congressman, thanks so much for joining. Folks, this is The More Money Show, and we'll be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts. It knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief. And it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI. It's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the second hour of the More Money Show. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. I'm getting excited for that big Orange Bowl game between the Indiana Hoosiers and Miami Hurricanes. I'm a big Ben guy, so I think this story, by the way, of what's happened in Indiana University is one of the most incredible sports stories of the decade. You've got a team that was the losingest team in college football for the last 50, 60, 70 years, and now is right on the doorstep of winning a national championship. Of course, they have to play Miami in the Orange Bowl on their home field. That's a tough task, but boy, would I love to see Indiana. It's turned college football upside down, and it's such a underdog story, and I love underdog stories, and I think you do too. By the way, this is economist Steve Moore. This is the More Money Show. We talk about finance, we talk about economics, we talk about politics, and sometimes, yes, we even talk about sports. So I've got a lot to cover in the next hour, so do not change that channel. Incidentally, most channels have boring infomercials at this time of the day. We have fresh information for you that we provide, and I'm so honored to follow 3 hours of Larry Kudlow on WABC. So this is, think about this, 5 hours of fresh economic, financial, and political news you don't get just about anywhere else in the country. So let's get right down to it. I have so many things I need to cover. First of all, I'll repeat what I said at the top of the last hour. We are in a genuine economic boom period for the United States. This is a sonic boom. We're seeing really strong growth. We're seeing, growth that's gone in the last 3 quarters, 3.8%, 4.3%, and the latest estimate is 5.3% for the quarter just ended. And by the way, we'd be above 6% if it had not been for the idiotic government shutdown, what I call the Schumer shutdown. So this is a high-flying economy. There's nowhere else in the world that has these kinds of numbers. And incidentally, at the beginning of the year, all these Ivy League economists and all the Wall Street economists were saying, we'd be lucky to get 2% growth and Trump could cause a second Great Depression. Boy, maybe they should just send their PhDs back in and say, we have no idea what we're talking about. So really, really good news. And just to add to that, we have a new report that's coming out at Unleash Prosperity. And so I'm going to give you a sneak preview of this. We have not officially released the report, but some of these numbers are just incredible, that the median income in the United States is now $86,000. That's a $2,500 increase. Incredible that we're seeing this kind of expansion. Even low-income families in the bottom 25% of income saw a nice income gain in the last 11 months. We don't have the December data yet, but we've got it from January of last year through the month of November. And these are official Census Bureau data, so it's really a great story. And by the way, this very much continues what happened. If you're not new to the More Money Show and you've been listening to us over the years, you know that what happened when Trump, in his first term in office, there was roughly a $6,500 median family income gain, which is gigantic. And yet for under Biden in 4 years, that number was $550. So incomes rose 10 times faster under Trump than Biden. And so far, they are also running at that pace or faster in Trump's first 12 months in office. So really fantastic news on what's going on. Inflation is headed down. It's at 2.7%. We need it lower. We need to get it down to 2% or lower, but we are headed in the right direction. Now, the other one I like to talk about is gas prices, because gas, many of you probably in your car as you're listening to this show, that's a good time to listen to AM radio. And the gas prices today, now I don't know what you're paying in New York, because I don't live in New York. As you know, I live in the swamp of Washington, D.C. But where I live, we're paying about $2.89 a gallon. Nationally, I think it's about $2.85 a gallon. I have a friend who lives in Colorado, says he's paying $1.89 a gallon. $1.89 a gallon. These are amazing numbers. And so when you adjust for inflation over the last, 50, 60, 70 years, we're talking about near all-time low prices for gas to fill up your pump. And by the way, this of course did not happen by accident, folks. It's not like this was just an accident of time that happened. It happened because Joe Biden sent gas prices through the roof. You remember $4 and $5 a gallon gas because he tried to destroy the oil and gas industry by cutting off production. And when you cut off production of something, its price goes up. Trump is drill, baby, drill, and prices are coming down. I'm here to tell you, I'm going to make an estimate. And it's always, as Yogi Berra said, projections are always difficult when they're about the future. But I'm going to make a prediction that we're going to see $2.50 a gallon around the country, which is very good news. It's like a tax cut. You know, when the gas price comes down, it means you have more money to spend on other things. So that is very good news. The second thing I wanted to discuss with you, because I know we have listeners around the country, but most of you listening are in the New York metropolitan area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and you have a new mayor of New York, Zoran Mandami, and he has some unorthodox economic views. I'm not going to attack him too much because he's new to the game. Let's see how he achieves and what he achieves, if anything, but I'm not a big fan of his ideas. I think most of you are probably not fans of his ideas. If you are, you probably don't know my bias, which is for free markets, freedom, liberty, and progress and prosperity. But I want you all to be very alert, because I don't think we have too many listeners, but some that are all the way on the West Coast in California. But what's going on in California is very interesting. So the California left-wing groups, the teachers union and so on, are going to put on the ballot, or they're threatening to, a 5% annual wealth tax. The wealth taxes, as you know, are confiscatory because you pay it over and over and over again. And so just right before the beginning of the new year, so just in the last few weeks, you've had all these billionaires have moved out of California, and that includes Google's Sergey Brin, who was one of the co-founders of Google, and Larry Page, and others. So a handful of billionaires who pay huge amounts of tax have left the state. So this is an extraordinary thing, because what it means is that tax that they were paying annually, because in California, just as in New York, the top 1% pay about half the revenue. So when you lose your billionaires, guess what? You lose your tax revenues, and your tax base shrinks. And so one of the reasons they left is because of the way this bill was formulated. It could mean that if you owned a lot of stock and things like that, and a lot of these people have their wealth in stock, they will likely they could face a 50% confiscation of their wealth. 50%. The government could just swoop it away. So these people are leaving. By the way, Gavin Newsom is saying that he's against it, although he's such a wishy-washy guy. I think he's just being an opportunist. He says he's against it, but this could pass in California. Now, why do I bring that up to a New York audience? Because this is exactly the kind of thing that Mandami wants to do. We're going to pay for all these social services by just walloping the rich and basically taking their wealth, taking their income away, and that ain't going to work. That is not going to work. And I'll just read this quote from Andy Fang. For those of you who follow business, he's one of the co-founders of DoorDash, and I know I use DoorDash. I don't know if you do, but here's what he wrote, and it was kind of a sad farewell to California. He said, quote, "I love California, born and raised here, but stupid wealth tax proposals like this make it irresponsible for me not to plan to leave the state. This Class B thing, that's their complicated wealth tax, itself could wipe me out." And he's a billionaire. He says, "Being founder-led is a big part of what makes DoorDash special. I will fight to keep it that way by leaving California." And this is very much what a lot of these guys are saying. Gary Tan, the CEO of Y Combinator, which is a multi-billion-dollar company, said, "Larry and Sergey can't stay in California since the wealth tax, as written, would confiscate half of their Alphabet shares." So who's going to do that? I mean, look, even if you love your state, and I like California, I love the weather, I love the women, I love the mountains, I love the beaches, but people can't afford to stay there. So don't do that, New York. That's the reason I bring it up is those of you who live in Manhattan or the other boroughs of New York, do not let them do this. You will ruin New York City. You will ruin it. and you'll see the wealth continue to migrate out, and it will go to Dallas. It will go to Miami. It will go to Fort Lauderdale. It will go to Salt Lake City. It will go to, all of these other places, Charlotte or Raleigh or Greenville, South Carolina. All these places are growing like crazy. One of the fastest growing cities in America is Charleston, South Carolina. Where are they coming from? New York. So save your state, save your city by opposing higher taxes on the rich, because the rich will leave. And I wish Mandami would understand that. And I don't want New Yorkers to learn this lesson again the hard way. So hold tight, folks. Do not go away. This is the More Money Show on WABC.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show on WABC. Thanks again for carving out some time on your Saturday afternoon and listening in. So my next guest is Jennifer Hoff, who is an old-time friend, but she's also the executive vice president at IBC Bank, which is in Houston. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Based in Houston, but I see you oftentimes in Laredo, which is right on the border. And so there's several issues I want to talk to Jennifer about. Let's start with what's just going on the border. You sent me to the border for about a year and a half ago, and we had a couple of days of amazing. Laredo is right on the Rio Grande, river, so it's right on the border there. And it's one of the biggest ports of entry, right, for cargo in the country.
That's correct.
So what are you seeing at the border? What's your sense of what's going on?
Well, with the trade uncertainty, the volume has reduced a little bit. We used to have 20,000 trucks a day. We're
20,000 trucks a day.
Yes.
So when I was there, that bridge and then the port of entry there where the customs is, that bridge could get backed up 2 or 3 miles long with trucks coming in.
Actually, 8 miles.
8 miles. Oh, my God. So they're waiting probably, in some cases, 3 or 4 hours to get.
Absolutely. Or longer, which is a problem with your cold produce.
Sure is, because it raises the price of things. So are they going to expand that port of entry so that it's more, it's more speedy?
Absolutely. We have 2 new bridges coming in, the 4-5, which will bring in 12 new lanes and really a big project. So it's a whole center, which is nice. And then one on the other side, Columbia Bridge.
And the economy is doing well there, right?
Very well. Yeah. Very well. Yeah. However, everybody's holding a little. Nervous because of the tariffs. They need to know.
Now, what about with respect to what's going on with the immigration situation and the, we're seeing some of these deportations, which I'm certainly in favor of, securing the border, which I think Trump has done an amazing job, and he's done an amazing job. I think they've deported 300,000 criminal aliens, which I love, but I'm not a big fan of, going into, factories and things and pulling people out of their neighborhoods. But what's going on there at the border, in Laredo with respect to the immigration issue?
Everybody's nervous. There is actually a lot of falsehood on social media. So they're scaring the workers, saying there's raids when there aren't raids. So they don't show up for work. They don't go to shop. So it's hurting.
So it's bad for the local economy.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I hope Donald Trump is listening, because he's done such a phenomenal job. My friend Tom Homan, who is, as you know, the head of ICE, has done a phenomenal job. But I think maybe somebody's working and paying their taxes and not involved in criminal activities. I don't understand why you would pull them out of their community.
100%.
Yeah.
And Tom
I knew you would agree with me on that.
Tom is a wonderful guy, but we really need to focus on construction too.
So tell us about IBC Bank.
Well, we're a publicly traded bank focused in Texas and Oklahoma. We're
two booming states.
2 booming states, 75 locations.
Right.
And we're predominantly the largest bank on the border, Texas border.
Yeah. And so are you bilingual?
I am not. I am
most people are bilingual, right?
Oh, 100%.
So let's talk about the other big issue that's affecting banks. And that is, I think, one of the reasons you're in town here in Washington, D.C., which is that we have this new proposal from Donald Trump. And I think I was told he got this idea from Elizabeth Warren. So that should warn you folks that this is not a very good idea to put a cap on credit card delinquency fees. And tell us why that's a bad idea.
Well, first of all, it is a horrible idea. And it's kind of what we talk about, Steve, all the time, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
True? Yes.
And this is the perfect example. I mean, to the layperson, 10%, that sounds reasonable. Yeah. But for operations, 6% is in default, 4% is a cost of money. So you're at 10 right there without any operating costs.
Can I interrupt for 1 sec? So, and the banks don't make money when people default on these.
No.
You make money by having people pay their bills on time, right?
Correct.
So you're saying that even at a 10, 12, 14% interest rate, the bank is losing money on these transactions, right?
Absolutely. There's been studies at 36%.
Wow.
And they're losing a lot of money. And it's not really as much as losing money as that the consumer doesn't have credit. It's taken away credit from the low and moderate income families.
I completely agree with that. And I just wrote a piece, an op-ed piece that basically said the big winners here are going to be the loan sharks.
Correct.
Because if you take away, because people, if you put in this restriction that says you can only charge 10% over, penalty for being late on payment, then lower income people with low credit scores will be removed from having credit cards, right? Because they're the higher risk.
Absolutely. And it kind of dates me because when I was going through college, if I had to get a credit card, I had to have a big fee. Right. It's the same thing. And that's what will happen again.
And, I tell the story how when I was first arrived, my first job, I was making $18,000 a year, but that was when $18,000 was a lot of money. No, but we were living paycheck to paycheck, and we would get paid at 3:00 on a Friday afternoon, and we would have to. This is before a lot of people had credit cards, so we'd have to sprint to the bank before we get 4:00, 5:00, because the banks were closed on Saturdays back then. If we didn't get to the bank by 5:00, we didn't have credit cards. So we'd literally, be eating cereal for dinner because we didn't have enough cash. And what's really changed, in my opinion, is you've seen a kind of democratization of credit. Now, 80% of Americans have credit cards, and they can, that has really changed the way we shop and buy things. It benefits retailers. So I don't really understand the logic of this.
There isn't. And, it's been a great service, as you just said, to make people who are credit invisible to be credit visible.
Right. And lower income Americans.
Right. Yeah. The lower. Right. I'm just talking about lower and moderate income.
Exactly.
That's it.
Right.
They get a free 30-day loan.
And the other thing I would say is, I'm not a financial advisor, folks, that, but my one little piece of financial advice is borrowing off your credit card is not a good idea. You're much better going to a bank or something like that and getting a loan. And a lot of people do fall into that trap, and then they're stuck with these high interest rates. But we need almost financial literacy to teach people, that's not why we have credit cards for borrowing. It's for paying your bills.
Correct. And that's why it was getting much better, and more literacy there's more people spending off monthly. Yeah. But it showed in all these Fed reports that, 38% lost their credit cards when they tried this before in Illinois and Missouri.
What, how many?
38% of the people lost their credit cards when they increased.
You mean when you say lost, you mean
they could no longer have a credit card? No, right? They could no longer have a credit card.
Right. And that's a big problem because, as I said, they say, well, 15, 20% interest is a lot. And I said, that's a big penalty. And I'm like, well, if you go to the loan shark, they're going to break your leg. If you
well, it's also 300%.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't make any sense. And I hope you're successful and we can talk Donald Trump out of this. But my advice to Trump, I wonder what you think about this, is don't take advice from Elizabeth Warren.
Agreed. Never a good idea.
How do you, just in our last 30 seconds, as a banker, how do you assess the economy right now? You have a front row seat being in the banking industry. Are people taking out loans? What do you think of the housing situation, et cetera?
They're still waiting a little bit to see what's going to happen on the tariffs, but they are moving forward. We aren't seeing the prices reduced yet in the grocery stores. They're everyday prices, but we're hoping to move forward.
Yeah. Do you think the tariffs, my argument is tariffs have raised prices on certain commodities, and it's just a tax. I mean, it makes sense. If you put a higher tax on something, it's going to cost more.
Correct. That's correct. I heard Navarro say the other day that tariffs are not a tax. I'm like,
they're a tax.
They're a tax.
They're a tax. A tax is a tax. Hey, Jennifer, thanks for stopping by. Great to see you. Come back the next time you're in town, and we'll finish the conversation. That's Jennifer Hoff. She is Executive Vice President at IBC Bank, a good friend, knows what's going on in the real economy. So thanks for giving us a sense of how the real world is working.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thanks so much for joining. I am now privileged to have on the line a dear friend and one of the great economists in the country. Of course, I'm talking about Arthur B. Laffer of Laffer Curve fame. And Arthur, thanks for joining this afternoon.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And you missed Larry. You missed that Larry Kudlow and I were your best men at your wedding.
Oh my God, that was the highlight of my life. I don't think anybody can brag of something like that.
Sorrier for anyone more than we did, and just joking, just joking.
All right, I got
You're a blessed guy.
I got a lot of stuff I want to bring up with you, and so
let's go.
Let's start with this. I'm saying, Arthur, that this is an economy that is firing on all cylinders right now. As I look at just all of the data across the board, it looks so positive. It looks like every arrow is pointing north. What is your assessment?
I think that's very true. I think whether you look at taxes or government spending or monetary policy or regulatory policy, even trade policy, Steve, and peace through strength policy, that's amazing. Every single category of the major kingdoms of macroeconomics are firing all in the right direction, and it's already done in the books. I mean, the big beautiful bill had so much in it that is only now starting to really kick in and take effect. And we got the Fed change coming very shortly, which will be spectacular. And we've got all sorts of other stuff. I mean, look what's happening in the international scene on peace through strength. It's really wonderful. And I think, I haven't felt this good since Reagan. I really haven't. And I maybe even feel better than I did when it was Reagan, although I was pretty giddy back then.
You mentioned peace through strength, and you're certainly seeing that throughout the world. I mean, what's happened in Chile, what's happening in Argentina, what's happened obviously in Venezuela, what's happening hopefully in Iran, maybe a regime change there.
Honduras, you name it, it's happening everywhere. Boom, boom, boom.
So peace is bullish.
Peace is really bullish, Steve. And I can't begin to tell you, Reagan was so good at it, and then we had just losers after losers after losers. I mean, none. And all of a sudden, we've got Reagan back again, and maybe even better than Reagan. I mean, Reagan did some pretty cool stuff with Iran and did some great stuff, Grenada, and some other stuff with Gaddafi and Libya. I mean, he really was good in all of this stuff, and we got the treaties and all that. But Trump is no slouch. Let me tell you, what he's doing is just incredible.
So you visit with him often in the Oval Office. I visit with him occasionally, but he seems to have a kind of innate understanding of how markets work, how business works. I mean, obviously, to be as successful as he is, you have to understand how the world works. What do you attribute to his success?
Yes. Well, let me put it this way. Some of the Federer and some of these great tennis players. I mean, they're phenomenal tennis players, and yet they may not know the physics whatsoever of how to hit a ball and all that, the physics and all that, but they just know how to play. And Donald Trump may not have his PhDs and all that. He's been damn well educated, but he really knows how to play economics and do it really right. He has that, he's been doing it all of his life, and he has that feeling there. He knows how to negotiate. He knows how to tell when things are happening. And he is probably the best practicing politician I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's just amazing how he does it instinctively and makes it fun. Besides, I don't want to be in his bad side ever, but I mean, as an observer, I just think he's a riot.
So, one of the things we said on our Unleash Prosperity hotline the other day was that we'd like, we called it let her rip, and we just said, you've set the table so amazingly with. By the way, you left out 100 deregulations for every new regulation. That's an amazing statistic.
Yeah, I read your piece, Stephen. It's incredible on that. Let her rip. It's just great. I would put one thing in though, if I may, on that piece. It's a damn good piece, and the economics is good, all of that. But remember, we're only advisors. And when we look at this, we look at the economics. And what you said, the economics is generally just dead on. But there's a lot of other considerations Trump has to take into account. And, that's the only thing I'd caution you on, is that Trump has so much more to put into the calculation of what he's going to do than just the economics. And so therefore, I restrain myself from judging. Because basically,
I knew you would say that, and you know that.
I know you do,
and then I think you're exactly right. So the other point I wanted to make to you is with respect to trade, because you and I sometimes get hit on the head by some.
We sure do.
Free trade friends, and look, I'm a free trader. You taught me free trade. I think your area of expertise when you got your PhD was trade, right?
It is. Trade is my specialty. It's the best field of economics, by the way.
So explain yourself when someone like our friend Mark Skousen says, "Oh, you and Laffer are selling out. You're losing your free trade principles." What do you say to? And then look, we like these people, but sometimes they bash us. And how do you respond to that?
Well, that's okay. And you understand where they're coming from, and we appreciate their comments. We really do. I mean, I don't wish they weren't making personal, but when you look at trade again with regard to Trump, let's put it. Yes. I mean, trade is a set of tools, and everyone understands the Ricardian gains from trade, the Alexander gains from trade. They know what happened with the Smoot-Hawley tariff, with the Kennedy and the Reagan trade barrier cuttings, and how prosperity fall. All of us understand that, but trade is, again, much more. It is something that Trump can use in negotiations. He can't use domestic tax policy in negotiations. He can't use Fed policy or regulatory policies. The only tool available to him to negotiate with other countries is using trade things. And he uses those trade barriers and non-tariff barriers, quotas, and all that stuff amazingly well to get secure peace and 4 peace treaties in Africa, Pakistan, Afghanistan. He's done it there. He's using it extremely well with regard to Russia and Ukraine. I mean, that's a real tough one to do. I mean, so he uses these and not only as economic tools, but also as negotiation tools. And so far, he has not wandered far from the free trade model. I think that most of the stuff he's doing is negotiating far better trade deals for the U.S. and for them. By the way, they don't even know how bad their trade policies are, these other countries. So I fully support using the tariffs, quotas, non-tariff barriers, and all the other stuff he does, as long as it's done by Trump, who understands the objectives and understands the issues. Yeah. Now, the next president, no matter who it is, I want it taken away, that authority taken away from the next president. But I want Trump to have it fully until his last day in office.
Well, what you just said was a long version of the art of the deal, and nobody understands the art of the deal better than he does. So let's turn to the tax bill. What are the 2 or 3 things that are most important in that tax bill that have caused such a burst of growth and output?
Well, I think the making it permanent, the personal income tax. Now, the corporate one was permanent, but 100% expensing, the death tax is huge deal, and they got that permanent as well. They've got all this other stuff there. The personal goes from 39.6 to 37, but then there's the tax on overtime. Yeah. And that's really amazing. And the way I put it is when you get a catastrophe like the fires in California, like the train spilling over in Palestine, Ohio, or like the 9/11 or that's when you want everyone to work as much as they can. That's not a time to increase tax rates on those people who are sacrificing their lives to save the U.S. And that's where I view the tax on overtime as making so much sense. These people are willing to go the extra mile to do the extra stuff, and that's not the time we should take to just beat them on the head with higher tax rates. It's just wrong.
Yeah, and then what do you think about no tax on tips?
I think no tax on tips is great from a practical standpoint. I mean, why on earth would you spend $1 billion trying to collect $1 million? It's just stupid. It's just stupid. Right. And why would you want to make these people, as long as you're not going to collect the money, why make them feel guilty and horrible and all this negative stuff? Just get rid of the tax on tips and do without. That's a practical solution to a very impractical policy of trying to collect revenues from those people.
So I'm talking to Arthur Laffer, the legendary economist. Arthur, last question in our last 2 minutes, and thanks so much for joining this afternoon.
My pleasure, Steve. You know you're my favorite.
You have advised a lot of governments in the past, including in Chile and other places. Now we've got a recovery job in Venezuela. Trump has liberated 30 million people without losing a single American life, one of the great military maneuvers in history. So what would be your advice to Trump and the Venezuelan people at this point and the new government? What do they do?
Well, make sure he sets up the process of government well. You know, I was very close with Cheney and Rumsfeld when we did Iraq, and what they did was they prohibited any one of Saddam Hussein's party members not to be allowed to enter government ever again, which precluded about 90% of the population because there was only one party in the country, and that lost a lot of talent. I think we need to take all the talent we can in Venezuela, marshal that talent, get local people to run things, and really do a transformation, much like the way we did in Germany or in Japan after World War II. I think we need to do that. We need to be supportive of them fully and totally. You know, we need to give them low-rate, broad-based, flat taxes, spending restraints, sound money, bring back prosperity to that country as fast as we possibly can to win over the hearts and minds of all the people. And there's no reason we can't do that in a year and a half, 2 years, and just have a blasting.
You did it in Chile.
Huh? Yeah, it happened in Chile. Now, this time around in Chile, the communist government lasts only 4 years. But when we came in after Allende, and I was down there the whole time then with all my Chicago boys there and all that period, we came in after a long period of really bad governments in Chile. And it took us a long time to create the economic miracle. And this time it shouldn't take us very long at all. I mean, this new president of Chile is phenomenal. And Honduras, people don't look at what's happening in Honduras. Even though the two top parties were 39 and 40% separately, the ruling Communist Party was only 17 or 19%.
Incredible.
I mean, we swept the board in that country, in El Salvador, everywhere. It's just so cool, Steve.
Yeah. Well, Arthur, freedom is breaking out all over, and so is free enterprise. And I love your bullishness because I agree with you. I think, what's your number for GDP growth for 2000?
Oh, I have no idea, Steve. You and Larry are 10 times better than I am at that.
Okay. Well, Arthur Laffer, thanks for joining. Have a great weekend. That is the great economist, Arthur Laffer. This is The More Money Show, and we will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is The More Money Show. This is Steve Moore. I am in the Cannon House office building on Capitol Hill in the big caucus room. And if you hear a lot of background noise, that's because this is a big session by the Republican Study Committee with some of the best members of Congress who are going down Radio Row. And so I'm very happy to have Austin Scott from the great state of Georgia. And the first question I have for you, Congressman Scott, is will Georgia win the national championship again this year?
Absolutely. The Georgia Bulldogs are the national champions. Every now and then we loan the trophy to another team just because we don't want to be greedy about it. But
it's a good team this year.
It's a good team with a great coach. And
are you a Bulldog?
I am a Bulldog. Okay. I majored in risk management and insurance.
You going to beat Alabama?
We beat Alabama every year. It's just sometimes they get an extra point or two on us. But Alabama's a great team. And
can I ask you a serious question about? I love college football. I'm an Illini. I went to the University of Illinois. We're not quite as good as Georgia, but I don't think we played Georgia any time in the recent years. But what do you make of the whole what's happening with college football and the NIL and this year was a spectacular season. So many great games, but. Some of these players are making more money playing college football than they would in the pros.
They are, and I think it's done away with a lot of the team camaraderie, if you will. And so I'm very worried about the team aspect of things. And I can tell you, Stephen, when I was coming along through high school and all, I snapped punts. So the position I played was one of those positions where you wouldn't have gotten anything. You would have been eating at the buffet if the school provided one. And obviously, if you have a great kicker, they might be getting millions of dollars. You got to believe there's certain resentments and other things that come into play there. I just believe in the team aspect of things. I don't begrudge the players.
Some of them are not really student athletes anymore. They're more like professional athletes.
When we got a piece of legislation coming to the floor this week, the SCORE Act.
I like that bill.
I have
what do
something.
You think? It's better than the Democrat bill.
It is, and so I'll tell you a free market principle that's in it that I don't like is they're saying, well, their agent can only make 5%. I don't know any agents. I don't know anybody who has an NIL contract. But do we really want to start saying that an adult?
It's like a price control.
Yeah. I mean, do we really want to start saying that?
I just don't want to see the players unionized. And I don't want to see lawsuits, legal abuses of the system.
I don't either. I've thought for a long.
I talked to your colleague Steve Scalise, as you know, he's he kind of talked me into it. But I agree there are some problems with it. But I looked at the Democrat bill. Yeah, that's a horrible bill.
Ours is much better.
Yeah, but it could be improved.
I do not believe, and one of my concerns is, and I do, we'll try to pass it this week. I'm going to vote for the rule. I still have some reservations about the legislation, but it's better than nothing. I don't think that the piece of legislation as it's drafted is going to solve all of the problems.
No, it will not.
Nor am I someone who believes that a federal piece of legislation can solve all of the problems.
So that's probably true.
But it does bother me that the team aspect, and you look back at the greatest coaches. The coaches will now tell you that players are coming to them with demands, and the demands are revolving in some cases around money and not around the team.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's the way. But it's a great product. I love college football, and it is. I want to see it continue. I just wish I'm a Big Ten guy. You're an SEC guy.
That's right.
That's a great rivalry.
Do y'all play football in the Big Ten?
Pardon me?
Do y'all play football in the Big Ten?
I was a little too small to play football, but I love football, and I love the product. Okay, so let us talk about first of all, how many years have you been? I'm talking to Austin Scott from the
So I've been here for 15 years.
15. You've been here a while.
I have. Full disclosure.
So what is the thing that has most frustrated you about being in Congress?
The polarization.
Yeah. It's never been so. I've been in this town 30 years. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. It's more polarized now than.
Do you even talk to Democrats anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised. I mean, there's, some of my best friends are Democrats. I would, if I'm going to go get a beer with somebody, I'd rather it be somebody that I trusted than somebody that I necessarily agreed with. So the thing that the American citizens don't see and people outside don't see is that, I mean, there are people that I vote with 100% of the time almost that I don't necessarily like or consider friends or trust to say something around them. And there are people that I vote with virtually 0% of the time that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, that I enjoy having dinner with, and our wives are friends.
How well have you gotten to know President Trump?
Not very well. I respect him. I think he's taken on tremendous issues that.
Does he come to your caucus very often, or?
I wish he came more.
Yeah, I do too.
I wish he came more. Yeah. I wish we had more dialogue with the administration than we do. That would be my chief criticism of the administration as a whole. Is that there's not enough respectful dialogue back and forth. Right. The challenge we have, though, Stephen, is that if you put all of us in a room together, unfortunately, somebody can't keep their phone off, and we have people who literally record conversations and share them with the press.
Yeah,
and so
nothing off
so
the
that's
record in this town anymore.
That's exactly right, and that's a problem. But the dialogue with the administration would be helpful. Obviously, tariffs is one of those situations where we need to be having more dialogue about what it's doing to certain industries.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, as you probably know, I've been, and I'm close to Donald Trump, but he gets mad at me because I'm not a big fan of some of his tariffs. But look, the tariffs do have a negative impact on certain industries, and we've seen that in sort of light manufacturing, et cetera. We saw that with the the coffee prices and so on.
Yep.
But overall, it's been a pretty productive year. You guys have done a lot.
It's been a very productive year, and I think the most important thing is what we got done very early, which is the tax bill.
Oh, it's huge.
And so nobody's getting a tax increase January 1.
Yes.
It's just not going to happen, and it's not going to happen because Republicans in the House and the Senate and the President,
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, congratulations. We ran the outside coalition at Unleash Prosperity, of all the groups, and I never thought we could get that done by the 4th of July. I just didn't, I've been in this town a long time, and you guys did it. And it was partly because you were all so committed in the House as Republicans, but also Trump just as a force of nature in terms of getting these things done. So congratulations. Yeah. Incidentally, one of the people come up to me all the time and say, hey, I haven't really felt the effect of that tax cut yet. And we have to always remind people, it's going to be next year for most people because of the withholding. So they're going to get that tax cut in 2026, not 2025.
Well, the other side of that coin is they haven't felt the effects of the tax increase they were going to get if we hadn't gotten it done.
That's a really good
point. And so ultimately, it is stopping the tax increase that was coming. Right. And so most people like myself, my taxes are not going to go down from what they were the previous year. But they're not going up to what the Democrats wanted them to go to.
Every Democrat in the House voted for this massive tax increase.
That's right. And if you think about where we are with our economy, we've been very lucky. I mean, recessions do happen. We have not had a recession in a long time. If you wanted to trigger a recession, do to businesses what the Democrats were going to do to businesses in the expiration of the Trump tax.
We have about 2 minutes left. I'm talking to Austin Scott, the congressman from Georgia. From Georgia, and I want if you could do three things, if you could, wave a wand and change how Congress works or how our policy works. What are the three things that you think are most important to keep our country safe and prosperous?
I would go back to the committee process. I think we should respect the committee process.
Now, what does that mean?
That means that if you're on the Armed Services Committee, you're making the decisions made on the Armed Services Committee that in that committee of jurisdiction. Okay. And then the other members that aren't on that committee should respect the work of the committee process.
Because they're experts.
They're the ones that are studying the issues. And then let's make decisions based on facts and not emotion. And then the other things, respect for the 10th Amendment and let's get, if it's not constitutionally our responsibility, then we should stay out of it.
Yes.
And so, again, I mean, education is one of the examples we're talking about right now. Federal Department of Education, we cut political ads at an 8th grade reading level, even though everybody who can vote is 18 years of age. If you want any more proof that the Federal Department of Education has failed in its mission than that, I can't find one, and so let's turn things
like the third?
I would work towards a balanced budget. we don't get there overnight, but a balanced budget would force Congress to actually make the decisions and determine what was a priority and what was not a priority. And simply continuing to spend money today because you spent it yesterday is not very smart.
Well, Congressman, I agree with all of those. Great reforms. Thank you for what you do for the country. Austin Scott, the congressman from Georgia, you've been in for
14 this is my
years.
15th year.
Thank you for your service. And this is The More Money Show. We will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the final segment of the More Money Show. I appreciate so much you tuning in. I hope you've been able to tune in for the full 2 hours, but it is always a privilege for me to be in front of this microphone and to talk directly to you every week. We have a great audience and a smart audience and a growing audience. So thank you. A couple of parting words for you. We're all concerned about healthcare costs. It is just having such a dramatically bad impact on people's families' incomes, and we're all feeling that. And I just thought I'd tell you that if you look at the states where the healthcare costs are highest, number one is California. I talked about California earlier, and then Washington State is high, and Oregon is high, and there it is. New York is high too. Why is it that everything is so darn expensive in New York? Not as expensive as California, but right up there. Going to end the show by just saying on an optimistic note, important optimistic note, the economy is strong. Trump is pushing all the right buttons. He should steer away from these kind of populist measures like putting caps on credit cards and things like that. Mr. President, stick with the program, stick with deregulation, lower tax rates. The the amazing things you're doing with American Energy, what you're doing to fight crime, to reduce illegal immigration. It's all working, Mr. President. Just let it go. Let her rip and let the economy explode, because we're going to see one of the highest growth rates in a long, long time in 2026. That's my promise. Folks, have a great weekend, and we'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great one.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.